So this is the Kato N700 series Shinkansen. It comes in a set of 8 with 2 end cars and 6 intermediate cars, including 1 pantograph car and 1 powered green car. Now before we get started, I'd like to thank banzaihobby.com for sponsoring this video. They are an online hobby store from Japan, and they actually give me a coupon code that you can use for 10% off model train products, and they'll be in the description down below. But yeah, let's get started on car number 1. So this is the lead car of the train set. It's painted white with a blue stripe along the side and gray at the bottom. And because Shinkansen are high-speed bullet trains, they do have an aerodynamic nose. It looks pretty cool. And you can see that V-shape in the middle, and before I thought it would be like a smooth slope, but in reality it's more like a hard wall on the sides. And we also have the headlights, which are embedded into the nose. They're actually quite long. Then here we have the cockpit windshield, and it says X65, which is the train set number. The windshield wiper, and I was surprised the sides are actually painted solid black instead of being clear, but apparently that's what it looks like in real life. They are still windows, just tinted. They also do include some cabin interior detail with the controls. Alright, so now let's go take a look on the side. So you can see it has a pretty sleek profile. On the bottom, here we have the truck, and lots of molded in detail along the sides. Then we have 2 doors, one for the train driver and one for the passengers. And they also have a rain gutter above. It says car number 1, no smoking. And this car has non-reserved seating, which you can see if you look into the windows, they do have an interior. Then let's move further down to the back of the car. Here we have an LED display. This train is the Nozomi and its destination is Hakata. Here we have a doorway, and there's the orange JR Central logo, which is the railway company operating this, and here's the N700 logo. And it says Shinkansen Series N700A, which stands for Advanced because these were upgraded from the original N700. And now in the rear we have this mechanism, the gangway / diaphragm connection. You can see there's ribbing on the sides and on top. Basically, there's 2 levels of couplers, the lower coupler and the upper coupler. The upper one, it just moves diagonally like this, while the one on the bottom seems like the actual coupler. So if you turn it to the side, more of it comes out. It's actually curving on the edge there, and it does the same thing if you go the other way. And from the bottom, you can see it's mounted on the typical gull wing shaped track. And then here's how it looks like on the other side. It means pretty much the same thing. The only difference is this side doesn't have vents on the bottom. And now let's go take a look at the roof. Alright, so in the front we have the V-shape for the head, some ripping across the roof, and we have the number 1 for the car numbers just on one side. And then in the back we have this raised section. It's kind of like a slope that raises up. It's very subtle. And then we have this radio antenna and this red line in the back. Alright, so in the bottom we have this big screw in the front to open up the inside. Then here's the truck, and here's a panel to install a taillight switch if you want, some ribbing. And in the back you can see the coupler is actually a long shank coupler. Alright, next up we have car number 3. This is our first intermediate car, and if you look on the end, they actually look a little bit different. And you can see this is how they would attach to the other car with this prong, and the couplers on the bottoms, they would just fit into each other. We'll connect them later. One unique thing about this car is if you look on the end, there is this tiny little window, which you can see inside for the diaphragm. And here's how it looks like going along the car. It's pretty standard. And if you look on the other end, there we have that connector. Now the other side, it's pretty much the same thing, and they even have that small little window at the end. Alright, so now let's go take a look at the roof. Again, we have the car numbers written, and if you look closely, there's actually like a different texture in between the lines. And then on the other side, we have this little module for the electricity lines that go on the roof, and it does make that bump. Alright, so now let's go check out the bottom where we have Kato, made in Japan. Alright, so next up we have car number 10, which is the green car. You can tell by the markings on the sides and also in the LED board. Basically, it's first class, so if you compare it to the other car, you can see the window sizes are wider on this one, so they do have more spacious and comfortable seating. And this car does not have that connector at the end. It also has these 2 upper windows, unlike the other side, which is just one regular window at the bottom. And here's a look at the rest of the car. Now let's go check out the roof. Now this car has modules on both ends, and this high voltage electricity line going across the roof. This car is also unique because it has that red roof access hatch. And if you look at the bottom, you can see that these trucks are motorized, so it's also the power car. The wheels are pretty shiny, but this one wheel has a traction tire on it. Then over here we have a box if you want to swap the decoder, and the traction tire is on the other side. Alright, so this is car number 12, the pantograph car. And here's how it looks like from the side. This car has reserved seating, and the end has that connector. And here's a look at the other side, just 2 vents at the bottom. And then here's a look at the roof. And we got that module at the end, and this pipe that goes through the pantograph, which collects electricity from the overhead lines, and does have molded in detail with pipe pipes and rivets, and indents for the pantograph horns. There also are the 2 aerodynamic fins on the sides, and there's multi-in detail in the front. And underneath we have the suspension springs. Now to raise the pantograph, you subtly lift it like this, and rotate the arm so it's upright. It really doesn't require that much movement. So here's how it looks like with the pantograph raised. Pretty nice. Alright, so now this is car number 13. This one also has reserved seating, and at the bottom they have these 2 really thin vents with the N700 logo at the end, and here's a look at the other side. And on the roof we have the 2 modules with that pipe in the middle, and the bottom's pretty basic. Car number 14, again with the reserved seating. There's nothing really special about this car, but you need them to fill in the consist, and on the roof there's only 1 module with the pipe. Now in car 15 we have this upper window. Now apparently it's raised because it's a smoking room where you can stand up and smoke a cigarette, and they have them on cars 3, 10, and 15. However, this year in 2024, they actually banned cigarettes on all Shinkansen trains. Apparently, they're going to use it to store water. And this car has 2 pairs of these thin vents, the logo and the other side. And this car has an empty roof. And finally, our last car, car 16, the other end car. It looks practically identical to car number 1. However, if you compare it side by side, they did move the doorway back, they got rid of the logo, and they switched the LED boards. And the bottom vents are on different sides. And on the roof, they have the numbers on opposite sides. Bottoms are exactly the same. Alright, so now let's actually connect these cars together with the mechanism in the back. And by the way, I do like to point out that they actually made this gangway connection this off-white yellow kind of color compared to this brighter white on the inside, which I do find it to be accurate, so props to them for doing that. So to couple them together, you want to make sure both of these couplers are centered and just slide it in. And there we go, now it's connected. And if you rotate to the side, you can see these things extend out. So yeah, it is a pretty cool feature, and so far I think this is the only Kato train that actually does this. Now after assembling the entire 8-car train set, here's how it looks like. It is extremely long, like it takes up my entire desk. Now to split them apart, you just pull it on both sides. Like that. Alright, so let's compare it to my other Shinkansen, the E5 Hayabusa, the E6 Komachi, and now the N700. Now the E5, the E6 are JR East, while the N700 is from JR Central. You can see they all have pretty unique designs, wider versus narrow versus V-shaped, and also the position of the headlights in the nose versus on the sides or on the top, and also the style of their radio antenna. This one's more traditional like the original Zero series, while the E5 and the E6 have a more streamlined appearance. And for the pantograph designs, these 2 go on the very edge, while the N700 has a bit of a gap. Now for the actual pantograph bar designs, pretty similar, but all the other mechanisms look pretty different. And also on the ends, the E5 and the E6, they have gangways with couplers, which you'll probably see in real life, while this one's more of a custom design and really focuses on having this enclosed gangway, which is the first time I'm seeing this in a Kato model. Usually they make models like this, where there is no cover in between, even though the real life E5 does have it. Now in terms of car length, the N700 just edges out the E5 just a tad bit, while they both share the same intermediate car length. And if you look at it from the bottom, you can see they have different panel line details, and you can see the bill of the N700 is much shorter than the E5 and even the E6. Another difference on the E5 and the E6, they have square windows, while the N700 has a more circular appearance. And here are them side by side, you can see the difference, and even the style of the cab door window is different. You can see these little nubs here. You would just fit this into the slot. Now you can either use this one or the other one. This one's kind of like a minimal design, while this one has the more iconic triangles. Also, this top section has a different style, but I think this one looks better. Also, the bottom parts are pretty flexible. And that's how it would look like installed. Now there is a secondary design with these holes on one side, and then you can add in this device. This is a spring type tensioner, and it's used to adjust the tension of the catenary, the overhead lines. So here's how it looks like installed on the side, and there also is a pole version of it. And then here is the other type of catenary pole, so you can add some variation to your layout. So I also got the worn Trussed catenary pole design. It also comes with this weighted type tensioner. And yeah, it looks pretty cool. You can add this to the side for some more detail. This style of catenary poles are generally used for commuter trains rather than Shinkansen. Now here them side by side definitely makes it look more realistic. And now let's get them on the layout. Now they don't really tell you how to set it up in the box. Instead, I found them on the V11 track manual. They do have a dedicated section and it shows where to place the catenary poles. And apparently the tensioners should be facing each other and you can see them here at the top. And when you are placing the catenary poles, you want to make sure the points alternate between each one. Now for the speed test, in the past I've only used one plank, but this time I'm going to try two, just to make the results more accurate, which is 19 centimeters long. So let's see how long it takes to cross this. So it went 0.63 meters a second, which is 2.28 kilometers an hour. Converted to real-life scale is 362 kilometers an hour, or 225 miles per hour. Now the real-life N700's max speed is 300 kilometers an hour, so it does exceed it by 62 kilometers. I actually do have two different Kato power supplies. This one's for HO scale, while this one's for N scale. So now I'm going to try with the HO version and see if it makes a difference. So this time it went faster at 2.57 kilometers an hour. Converted to real life scale is 408 kilometers an hour, or 254 miles per hour. So yes, because of the higher voltage, it was able to go 46 kilometers an hour faster and 108 kilometers faster than real life. Now if you compare it to previous speed tests, it is slower than the E5 and the E6 Shinkansen, but you also have to take into account it's a much longer train with 8 cars instead of 6. And also in real life, the E5 and the E6 are faster than the N700. Now before we get into the final thoughts, I'd like to thank Bonsai Hobby for sponsoring this video. They are an online hobby store from Japan, selling a wide range of Japanese hobby items like these model trains, and they give me a coupon code you can use for 10% off for any model train items. I'll leave the code and a link to their website, bonsaihobby.com, in the description down below. So for my final thoughts, the Kato N700 Series Shinkansen is a very cool model. It's pretty well detailed with small text, labels, interior, and logo, and I love their realistic enclosed gangway, which is a pretty unique design which which I haven't seen anywhere else, so that's kind of why I really wanted to get this one in particular. It also comes with 8 cars, the longest train set I've ever gotten, and each car has their own unique differences in roof design, windows, and vent layout. And I had no idea that these upper windows are for smoking rooms, which is now banned, so I don't know what to call it now. Now for the catenary pole designs, they're relatively easy to assemble, they look pretty great, and it makes the layout more realistic and interesting to look at. Now the box doesn't tell you how to lay it out. For that, you'll have to look inside the track manual, and it's actually only in the Japanese side. If you look on the English side, they don't mention it at all. And you should know, to fill up an entire oval track, 1 box isn't enough, you need to get 2. Since I didn't have enough, I put the commuter catenaries on the other side, which is not accurate because in real life Shinkansen and commuter trains, they run on different gauge tracks. Also, there's not another stand for the second tensioner. In the manual, it shows the smaller piece, which might be sold separately. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.